It's October 20th, 2010. Good evening, I'm Alex Norris, the mayor.
James McSee, County Commissioner.
Daphne West, City Commissioner. Oh. And would you please stand and join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. It's so nice to have kids there in the front row. With your indulgence, I know we have the oath of office, which is always a very exciting thing. We have family and friends here of our two new officers, but there's something kind of interesting that we have. I think that we'll do first. We have another donation to the city that I think you'll find interesting, and this is what the donor wrote. Enclosed is the DVD set for Route 66, Season 3, Volume 1. Disc 2 of this set includes the episode entitled Across Walnuts and Wine. This episode was filmed in Oregon City and Westland during the summer of 1962, before some of you were born, and was broadcast on CBS November 2nd, 1962. I grew up in Oregon City and graduated from OCHS in 1970. My childhood memories, I was 8 years old at the time, included seeing the Route 66 crew filming on an old bridge downtown and at the Victorian House at 916 Washington Street, just across from the former Oregon City Hospital. I did not see the broadcast of the episode because Route 66 was more of an adult drama and not a show I would have watched at that age. Fast forward to the present. I don't live in Oregon City anymore, but my job has me frequently visiting my former hometown. Sometime in 2009, I started to think about the Route 66 episode and became curious about what it showed about Oregon City. Of course, I went to the internet for information. I found out that, like so many of the old TV shows, Route 66 was now available on DVD. After a little research, I identified the name of the Oregon City episode, then found the DVD set that included that episode. I bought that DVD set from Amazon. After it arrived, with great anticipation, I put the discs in my DVD player and for the first time in my life, saw the CBS show that I had seen in production 48 years before. It was fun to see my hometown featured in a popular TV series that has been watched by a large nationwide audience. Of course, it occurred to me that there might be quite a few people who would similarly enjoy watching this Route 66 episode. I got to thinking that the city of Oregon City should also have this DVD set, so I got another set from Amazon. Perhaps it would be appropriate to send it to the Clackamas County Historical Society, but I'd like you to make that call. I'm sure the Chamber of Commerce would enjoy watching Martin Milner's discourse about historic Oregon City in the opening scenes. Anyway, please accept this Route 66 DVD, thank you very much, as my gift to Oregon City in appreciation for my childhood home, a great place to live today, and for a historic Western city. Thank you for your service to the city. Sincerely, Paul R. Johnson, who lives in Milwaukee. So, on cue, we've queued up this episode and thought that you would enjoy. We're not going to watch the whole thing, just the first little bit.
Hey, that must be the mill over there. This is a pretty historic place. Did you know this is the first incorporated city west of the Rockies? The portal. There may be 15 minutes extra set time in it. More historic firsts here than any other western city.
Oh my goodness.
Take a right here at the light. We want 10 to 1.
This guy to go to
First public school, first library, first gold mint, first apple tree planted, first public building, first newspaper, first whiskey still, and the first and only perpendicular street, that elevator right over there. First perpendicular street. Vegas. Goes with the first whiskey still. Let me have the address again, Miss Wilson. You said right up.
Hampton, Washington, 916 Washington, Southeast Florida.
Sure thing.
It's Molly.
We gotta get to work, Waldo.
Yeah. Well, he ain't going nowhere. We can't find him. We'll get him tomorrow.
So anyway, now we will have this in our library or someplace. We'll figure out a place to put it. So thank you for your indulgence. I thought it was a really fun donation. Now we'll move on to the oath of office for two of our officers, Michael Kramer and Steve Herford. So please come forward. Talk on this side.
I'd like to introduce two of the officers here. One, Mike Kramer, has been with the department for 10 years now, right, Mike? Almost 10 years as a reserve and 8 years as a regular officer. Mike is our newest sergeant. He's our 7th sergeant we have. He's a patrol sergeant and shares the swing shift duties. And Mike is a graduate of Lewiston Park College. He has a bachelor's degree in political science. And one day he might be sitting up here, I guess. Mike is also been with the department. He's serving detectives. He also received the department's life-saving award for saving a suicidal subject in 2005. And last year, in 2009, he was awarded the TIPS. What's the name of the award, Mike?
Primary Intervention Program.
And what it basically is there's a group called TIPS, which once a year we award one emergency responder in the Portland area for just going way above and beyond his duties and helping victims of trauma. And that's between all the firefighters, all the paramedics, all the police officers in the whole metro area. There's a lot of those people obviously that work here. And Mike was actually selected for that award last year, which was a great honor for him. And I'm really excited to have Mike join us. It's one of my great pleasures as a chief to see people develop as young officers and become leaders in the department. We're expecting really great things from him. So, Mike Kramer. And Steve is our newest hire. Steve started working for us on October 5th. He previously worked for the Klamath County Sheriff's Office, was there from 2006 until this year. He's a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. And we're really glad to have him up here. It's kind of continuing with our philosophy in the department to go out and hire experienced lateral officers and get them to come on, because it really saves our city a lot of time and money training new officers and bringing them up to speed. And we're really excited to have Steve on board. And And he has his wife, Rhonda here, his 12-year-old daughter, Shelby, his almost 11-year-old daughter, Megan, and Bailey's here too. So they all just started school here this last week or so. Welcome to our community.
It is indeed a pleasure to administer the oath of office to 2 new officers. So please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your name,
I, State Herbert,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold the law
that I will uphold the law
and support the Constitution
and support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of Oregon.
and the state of Oregon.
I will abide by
I will abide by
the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics
the law enforcement code of ethics
and the Department's rules and regulations
and the Department's rules and regulations
while faithfully performing
while faithfully performing
my duties as sergeant and police officer.
my duties as Sergeant Officer
Sorry, that was a little awkward. For the Oregon City Police Department
for the Oregon City Police Department
of Oregon City, Oregon.
of Oregon City, Oregon.
Thank you very much. You are duly sworn. Let's pose for pictures here. You guys have your camera? You already did it. Okay, great. Good. Okay, next we move into citizen comments. I see we have 3 people who have signed up to speak. I would ask that when you come up to the microphone, that you state your name and you can bring that, you can bring that up here to our city recorder. The cards are in the corner. You'll have up to 3 minutes to speak to us at the beginning. Now it's on a non-agenda item, but these rules apply throughout. That you give your name and the city in which you reside. You write legibly, you don't have to give us your address. So the first speaker tonight is Robert Fearing, followed by Susan Fisher. Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Robert Hearing, Oregon City. I'm a repeat in front of you. As you can see from the pictures, we're having difficulties on our street again. That fence is owned by the city, and but it's taken down by the residents who live in the proximity. And the largest hole is big enough to drive your vehicle through. We've watched them do it now. There is another hole.
You drove your vehicles through it?
Mhm.
Okay.
There is a path that has been beat down through the foliage that is the surface water runoff collection area. They've kicked the fence down there. That hole's been open for months and closed and opened and closed and opened and closed. We feel on the street because it's a continuing problem. We're starting to see the kids back on the street again, not to the volume that they were before, not to the problems that they were before, but the fence is going to be a problem forever. And we feel the only possible solution to that would be to put up a cinder block fence along that entire length, something that cannot be taken down, something that the city doesn't have to come back out on and repair on a regular basis.
Okay. Mr. Frazier, do you want to be the one that communicates with him in the future on that?
Certainly, I've been away for a few days, but if you can somehow get me some description of what it is you're asking for and where, and either by email, or you can write me a letter, or you can bring it in, I'll come by, and then I'll follow up on that.
That'd be great.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that to our attention. Again, Susan Fisher, followed by David Skinner.
Susan Fisher, Oregon City, Laurel Lane. Yeah, we've had a lot of issues here. The picture I just gave you kind of gives you a lay of the land of what we're looking at. The section A up in the upper part is where that fence was torn down just this last week. That section B just below that is where the fence has been repaired several times, but there's a large path that's coming through there now. Section C shows you where our fence is, the wooden fence that was put up, versus the cyclone fence on the side of the apartments. And there's a small opening in there. It's probably maybe 1.5 feet that you can just barely get through there and come through into that section D there, where they're running through that whole area, and then across the street to section E, which is the pathway over to Gardner Middle School. Okay, so this last week we had some younger kids that we saw after that fence was torn down. They're jumping up and down on the fence that's on the ground, breaking the boards apart. I have, since then, like Bob said, he's seen people actually drive through there, but lots more traffic coming through there. On Sunday, my husband and I were coming home down through. We live at the very bottom, that lower left house there, and so we're coming through, and there's 6 or 8 kids out there. They're maybe 10, 12 years old. Some of them on bikes. One of them, ramming a shopping cart up onto the fence, into the fence itself. And there was another kid that was riding his bike along the path to Gardner, coming through across the street, and for some unknown reason, running directly into that section D there, into the trees. I don't know what he was doing. So in the last week since that large section has been broken out, we've noticed a huge increase in the amount of litter in there, a lot of broken trees and things like that. Last March, I had to contact Eric Hand, who's the wastewater storm supervisor for the Public Works, and because we had witnessed a bunch of kids that were playing inside the actual fenced area. It's kind of between C and D there in that little triangle. It's actually fenced in by a cyclone fence. And these kids, 6, 8, 10 years old, all age ranges, were actually inside the fence, climbing all over the trees, playing in the water. And I even caught a couple of them coming through the stormwater drainage tube that goes under the street. I don't know what they were doing there, but
You could please summarize it.
okay. At any rate, the point being, this fence needs to be permanently closed. We have seen proven time and again that when the fence is open, there are problems. When it's closed, things are fine. The other fact that we've seen is that the wooden fence takes a lot of abuse. Every time it's been fixed, it only takes 2-3 days before one or several boards are gone.
Thank you.
And that's our point.
Thank you. Okay, did you guys get it? Okay. David Skinner, followed by Wayne Business.
Hi, my name is David Skinner. I live at 18786 South End Road. Oh, okay, Oregon City. As you can see on the highlighted area, that's where I live. And on September 19th of 2009, at 2 a.m., I had a car crash into my house. They kept going, denoted in the green line, and went through my neighbor's fence and crashed right into my house. And the car wound up inside my house. we decided at our own expense to build a wall, a cinder block wall reinforced with rebar, and it happened again last Sunday. The distance of where they struck was within 8 feet.
At the same place.
8 feet of the same place. And this really concerns my wife and myself. I feel like I'm looking down the barrel of a gun when I look out my kitchen window or my dining room window. And I was just wondering if there's something the city could do. Maybe a barrier, a speed bump, a guardrail. This is not just like bad luck. It's something, they keep hitting in the same area, and I'm just waiting for it to happen again.
Thank you. We'll refer this to staff too. Did you have a comment at this point?
No, I would like to let the commission know that this couple has come to the Transportation Advisory Committee last night, so they were able to hear about the concern. And I think it's something probably that Chief Conrad and I would probably want to look at together. You may or may know that Chief's got a lot of experience with safety and the roadway system and how it's designed, and obviously Public Works is something that we specialize in as well. So I think we'd like to work on it together.
We actually had received an email about the speed through there, and we had put out a significant amount of resources throughout there and try to slow them down. We issued a lot of citations through there, and in fact, I live right down the street from you, and I was going home one day for lunch. I saw officers sitting out there enforcing traffic, so I know we did devoted a lot of time to doing that. Unfortunately, what happened in both these circumstances, it was late at night, and we were dealing with intoxicated drivers who were having trouble negotiating that turn. And that's the issue, I think, in both these cases, which contributed to it, is the impaired drivers.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
Both those drivers live further down South End. I think that I know you're doing as much as you can, but I've lived there for 10 years and I have never seen anybody pulled over. And I don't mean any disrespect to you.
I actually did see several, and we were looking at
it. Seems like that speed limit is a joke. It's 25 miles per hour. And people fly through there in the morning and in the evening. I understand it's a commuter kind of community and people want to get home, but it's led to this understanding that they can drive as fast as they want from Warner Parrott at the four-way light. They try and get up enough speed to slingshot themselves around the corner, and if there's any kind of impairment, they don't make it. And there's other forms of impairment, like the weather conditions. It's going to start raining here, ice, rain. I mean...
Yeah, thank you. You've gotten our attention, and we've got two of the people that can help solve the problem, on it. So thank you we'll ask for a report back from both of those and see where we go.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to me.
Sorry about that. Next, we're going to get the final speaker unless someone else is
Madam Mayor and Commissioners, my name is William Gifford, and I live in Oregon City. I have a lot of things to talk to you about, but I'm only going to choose one tonight. I have attended the jug handle process and open houses and so on, but something has come to my attention because I don't seem to be able to get the answers that I want from there. I would like to read to you an article from a recent copy of Newsweek called Safer Routes on the Roads in Indiana. American roads are safer than ever, according to the Department of Transportation, but that positive development masks a more regrettable trend. Once the world's least dangerous place to drive, the U.S. is now 12th in its rate of road deaths per miles driven. A new International Transport Forum report shows. On a per capita basis, the U.S. falls to 28th, pinched between Cambodia and South Korea. While there are myriad factors in this slide, that's downward slide, one in particular deserves a look. Roundabouts. The circular alternatives to stoplights are common abroad, where they eliminate one of driving's most dangerous moves, the left turn against oncoming traffic, and can reduce fatal accidents by as much as 90%. I was amazed at that. Fortunately, the U.S. is also starting to think inside the circle. Maryland, Missouri, and Georgia have built dozens of roundabouts in recent years, and hundreds more are in the works nationwide. But Carmel, Indiana, is leading the nation, having built about 60 since 2001. For a city that claims, quote, one of the country's first automatic stop-and-go traffic signals, it's saying something that the lights are now being torn down. The benefits, however, may say something more. In the revamped intersections, there have been an 80% drop in crashes involving injuries. When I look at the Jug Handle project and I see a roundabout on one side and I don't see one on the other side, I see a traffic signal, it's just going to be another red light, and I can't get a straight answer from the engineers about why we don't put roundabouts on both sides of that intersection. I would certainly encourage this commission to look more strictly at why we can't get two roundabouts. I've heard excuses about rights-of-ways, but I think that it's very doable. When I look at it, I think we could put another roundabout in there. And I'm not talking about, as one neighbor called it, a winky little one-lane roundabout. They really need to be two-lane roundabouts. But I would certainly hope for the safety of the city we can look at that more carefully. Thank you.
Appreciate that. That concludes citizen comment this evening. Commissioners, I urge you to look at the agenda. Is there anything that you would like to have reordered this evening? The consent agenda has actually something on it I think they may want to talk about separately. Yeah, maybe. Does anyone want to talk about the dog thing separately? I don't.
I read it. Unless somebody else can provide more information, then
maybe we should just pull that out separately since it's something a little bit new. Okay. Otherwise, we'll take down the agenda in the order in which it is listed, and we'll begin. Let's get back there with our first public hearing, and that is the second reading for Ordinance 10-1009, the procedures for creating an economic improvement district. We're talking about in our downtown. We had the first reading last week, and are able to take public testimony if you desire this evening. And Ann, are you going to?
Yeah, just a footnote on this. This is the second reading of the ordinance, and the only reason we listed it first in public hearings is because this has to be done before we go to the second public hearing. So this technically is not a public hearing, it's just simply a second reading that we have to do before we move into the next agenda item, which is a public hearing.
Okay. Do the commission wish to take public testimony on this item? I believe that is our option. Okay. Then may I have a motion, please, for adoption?
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Zeta, seconded by Commissioner West. On the motion, please, for the reading, Mr. Sullivan.
Yes, this is ordinance number 10-1009, an ordinance containing procedures for creation of economic improvement districts.
Thank you, Nancy. The vote, please.
Commissioner Nocita?
Aye.
Commissioner Neely?
Aye.
Commissioner West?
Aye.
Mayor Norris?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Next, move into the active ordinance, which is being introduced this evening. So 10-1011, which is the creation of the economic improvement district. Yeah, you want to walk us through that?
Thank you, Mayor, and members of the commission. So what we have tonight is the first of two scheduled public hearings. This is a new process for us. It's the creation of an economic improvement district. And the reason we have, it's a two-step process, and we have two public hearings, is the first public hearing tonight establishes the commission's approval of setting up the district. If that is approved tonight, then the second public hearing, which is tentatively scheduled for December 1st, would be an opportunity for folks to again speak to the district and also speak to the assessment rate. And the assessment rate is based on the AV of each property in the district, and it's proposed to be 1% of AV with a cap of $2,500 per property. In addition, I'd like to go ahead and summarize some of the parts of this ordinance that are pertinent here. Section 1 again creates the district and specifies what the money raised from an EID could be used for, and it includes recruitment efforts, marketing and promotions, streetscape, including but not limited to trees, lighting, bicycle racks, flowers, and public art, and downtown programs, including the operations and management of the district. And again, this is specific to the downtown area. Section 2 states what the estimated revenue generated from this district would be. And this is again based on that 1% assessment rate, and that would generate approximately $135,000 per year. Section 3 again specifies the 1% rate. Section 4 caps that rate at no more than $2,500 for any tax year. Section 4 again limits the use of those funds exclusively to downtown. Section 5 defines the boundaries, and you'll see Exhibit A is a map of those boundaries. Section 6 establishes the time period for the EID, which is 5 years, which is the maximum allowed by the Oregon Revised Statutes. Section 7 establishes again the second public hearing I mentioned for December 1st, 2010. Section 8 specifies, and this again is from the Oregon Revised Statutes, that if property owners representing 33% or more of the assessed value in the district object to that district in writing at a public hearing, then you may not pass the district. Section 9 establishes Main Street Oregon City as the advisory committee to the City Commission for the expenditures of funds raised through the district. And then Section 10 talks about the effective date of the ordinance, which is 30 days from passage. So that's a summary of the ordinance. And we have with us tonight Lloyd Purdy, who's been instrumental in working with the downtown businesses and owners. I think Lloyd will probably want to say a few things. And I know we also have several people, property owners from downtown, that would also like to address the ordinance.
Great. As we are considering this at the request of the downtown business owners. So, Lloyd, did you have something to say before we open up the public hearing? Please, come forward.
Good evening, Lloyd Purdy, downtown manager. Apologies for the coughing and the hacking in the back of the room. That's me. I'm here with nine business owners, property owners, and residents, a combination of 9. Some business owners own property, and of course some property owners own their own business. It's an attempt at levity, sorry. Anyways, that's for us. Some of those business and property owners, those downtown stakeholders, have after using public comment, I think, to address whether they're for and some even against this idea. In either way, it's a very good cross-section of the sentiment we see from the business owners, the property owners, and even area residents who like what's happening in downtown. I will come back if you have any questions about the process later, or I can take some now.
If you have any questions now, then I'll open the public hearing, or you can hold the questions till after public hearing.
I guess the question is,
okay, Commissioner Neely.
Mr. Vermont, is notification procedures. I presume he's not doing it, we're doing it.
Yes, that's the city's responsibility. We sent out a notice 30 days, over 30 days before this meeting tonight. And if you approve the ordinance, we'll send out a public notice within the next week for the December 1st meeting.
Is there anything, be it certified or any other form to guarantee that we know whether the notification has been received by the property owner?
Well, they're not required to be sent certified mail, but I think Lloyd has a said a lot of time with the property owners. I think everyone's pretty aware of. In fact, Lloyd, you may want to summarize. I know you've had several meetings when it sent out a number of surveys.
Separate from the city's official public noticing process, we've done some downtown communications where we've had meetings. We've invited all 66 property owners to each of those meetings. We've done postcard response surveys. We've done emails to business owners and property owners, inviting them to contact me if they have questions, so we could talk about what the proposal is.
Those notices went out to out of city property owners.
Sorry, say that again.
Out of city property owners.
Yes, every property.
Can he not be heard? Is that not picking up? Is there a red light on?
Red light, yeah, maybe I'm just not.
Probably just not open enough. There you go.
Okay.
So 66 property owners in the boundary received notices, and you've also then gone beyond that to notify business owners who may not be the property tax property owners.
Correct. Invited business owners to comment on what they think. 66 is a rough number. 66 property owners and 88 properties over 100 something lots.
Any other questions before we open public hearing? All right, thank you. All right, I will open the public hearing. We have several people who signed up to speak. Graham Peterson and Andy Bush. Would come up together, please. Andy, if you pull that microphone towards you, then you will have one as well.
How's that?
There you go.
Well, maybe I'll just start out real quick. Thanks for listening tonight, first off. I became aware of a BID.
Please introduce yourself.
I'm sorry, I'm Andy Bush from Bush Furniture in Oregon City. I became aware of an EID approximately in the mid-90s. I took a trip to McMinnville and watched what they had done through their EID. I think they called it a BID. Saw second floor residential. I saw a lot of retail blooming in an area that kind of reminds me of Oregon City. I think this is a vision, more of a test, a mechanism to test if that might work in Oregon City. 60 months, I think, is fair. 5 years. Personally, I can say that if people take advantage of some of the projects that might come out of an EID, which for us this year has been a sign fund, and a USCA electrically efficient fixture upgrade. Those two projects alone probably will clear 1 year's tax for the BID for us. So if all my neighbors were encouraged to take advantage of some of the projects that are coming that way, and I think more that would come with Lloyd or an instrument to bring those projects to business owners, I think a person could say, I am being taxed, I am paying for this, but I'm getting something back. It's hard to be the first to try something and speak about it. I know I have neighbors that are challenged in this economic time, but as far as we're concerned, I think if you take advantage of the programs, you might be able to reduce or gain from the DID, which would be that tax. We also probably stand to pay the most due to the size of our building, and I think that should be a discussion. The figure of 2,500 as a cap, I think, can be a discussion later or through this process. So, that's about what I have to say.
Graham Peterson, Oregon City, also Economic Development Chair for Main Street, Oregon City. I got a minute? All right. I could just talk about leverage.
You each have 3 minutes. She just has to be said. There.
I'll see what I can do. All right. So, I want to talk about leverage and just my involvement with Main Street, Oregon City, and the leverage that I've seen through Lloyd and other volunteers in terms of generating funds for Main Street and downtown in general. And through this EID, I think the amount of tax revenue generation versus the amount of leverage we're going to get in bringing in additional funds from economic development and stimulus is going to be huge. I don't know what the figure is, but if the past is any signal of what's to come in the future, I think we can expect that. I can also talk from being a commercial real estate broker, and if at first tenants aren't sold on Oregon City, when you start talking about all the things that we are doing and all the qualitative things that are going on with Main Street, Oregon City, oftentimes that is really the tipping point, which gets somebody really sold on Oregon City. And I've got tenants coming from all over the metro area, and that spills into
high street office space. I mean, you've got naturopaths, doctors coming in, and they love the ambiance that's generated from downtown. And I've heard in the past that we've had similar programs going on in Oregon City, and they've risen and fallen, and I can't speak to the quality of those, but I can speak to the quality of our current Main Street program, and it would be certainly a shame to lose that. So I'd like to see that a stable funding source generated for the next 5 years. That's all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next up, Larry Morton. That's the last speaker I have down, so if you wish to speak, please fill out a card. Thank you. Hi.
My name is Larry Morton. I have Larry Morton Transmission Service in downtown Oregon City. I don't specifically have a problem with this whole idea. Truthfully, my property was excluded from it. I don't fit in this neighborhood in the category that it's being directed. See, my property was zoned light industrial when I first purchased it. It's next to paper mill right across the street. 6 months later, it was down zone. And down zone a couple more times since then. My kind of business was selected out back in 2005 when the other plan was put in effect in connection with downtown Oregon City. It was listed as really the only kind of business that's not allowed to expand down there, which seems a little odd since everybody says they want more jobs, but I'm not allowed to create any more, so that's a little frustrating. If the rest of downtown Oregon City wants to go along with this, that's perfectly okay. But I should be in the same category as the paper mill across the street. If I'm left in it, then why are they left out of it? You see, the more this pushes towards foot traffic and little restaurants, everything in that category, it increases the chance more and more of phase 2 of McLaughlin Boulevard in advancement plan going in. If that does, I'm out of business. So it's honestly, promoting this is kind of like buying my enemy bullets. So if you can just take and scratch my 3 properties out of the zone and not restrict me in the same fashion, then I don't have a problem with it. But otherwise, I'm totally against it.
Thank you. The last speaker I have is Dan Holiday. Just someone else restart out.
Dan Holiday, I live in Oregon City. I support the plan. I support the idea of the Economic Improvement District. But something that Mr. Drenlow said concerns me, and it surprised me because I guess I misread the ORS. But so it does not require an affirmative approval. Is that right, Mr. Sullivan?
Mayor, it does not. It's a 33% in opposition to.
So, hence my concern, raising taxes without an affirmative approval from those folks that are going to be paying the tax. And I think that if you look at this and say, okay, just because the state law says that it works that way does not necessarily mean that the city couldn't require an affirmative approval from, and I don't know whether there's any limit as far as whether it would be a simple majority or whether it would be something else. But I have a real concern about saying we're going to raise taxes on people, and we made the effort to notify them, but they didn't get back to us, so that's the deal. So, in principle, I support the idea of the downtown plan. I support the work that it's doing. I support all the folks that are down there. But in principle, in my conservative principles, I believe that if we're going to tax people, they ought to have the affirmative opportunity to say yes. And that's all I would say.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who's come prepared to speak on this topic? Okay, and I will close the public hearing. Oh, sorry, did I miss you? You okay? All right, then back to the commission discussion. So this evening, we actually hold the first reading over. Is that correct?
This is not a reading, this is a public hearing.
This is just a public hearing, okay. So Commissioner Neely, you want to begin the discussion?
The person, was it Mr. Morton, previous?
Yes, speaker.
Previous to, well, not the last
Oh,
one. Anyway, and I guess, I think Wade might want to come back up again. The opportunity for, obviously you don't want to cut out pieces of parcels that would affect a corridor per se, but if properties are adjacent to an area that in fact are really not part of it, can that boundary be shifted?
So that might be a legal question.
The boundary we propose from 5th to 15th, including Washington Street corridor, in fact does include the mill. The mill is a part of our downtown and would be expected to help cover the expenses of the downtown program. This is an assessment based on.
It's not in the.
It's on the map, I believe.
Yeah. No, it's not.
Yes, it is, actually.
The outliers. Just
two parcels. The same part it's in right now of our concept of downtown. So the mill would be expected to contribute like everybody else would. But to your point, Doug, Commissioner Neely in particular, the council can draw whatever boundary you all see fit to draw. I've given you a proposal based on the input I've gotten from property owners about how to, who would support it, so it has to work, and two, you need to generate a certain amount of money to fund what we're doing. So starting to cut out properties because they don't feel like they benefit, well, that opens up everybody to say, well, I don't benefit. So it's kind of an all or nothing thing, which is why you do an economic improvement district. Everybody benefits from the improvements to the property. As their property values increase because we have better tenancy, everybody benefits, so everybody bears some part of the burden. That's the concept behind it.
Because you saw me want to comment on it.
Just easy enough, and I agree. You might want to give direction if you want to change the map, so we don't have to go through 3 readings of the ordinance getting next time.
Okay. Commissioner Cedar.
But I'd like to just speak to Mr. Holliday's point, and just out of curiosity, how many objections, formal objections, have been received? Either the 66 property owners?
88. 88 properties with 66 property owners?
Right.
Okay, sorry.
And it's obviously, as we've stressed, it's not a one property, one vote issue. The property owners have been invited to submit objections here formally, so I don't know if Mr. Brentlaw or Ms. Ives have received any. They have until December 2nd to, I think, formally file their objection. That's the litmus test I would encourage you all to use, is who's actually taking the time to do that. We have obviously 9. How about you raise your hand in the back? Business owners, property owners, residents who decided to show up today because I think they support the idea, but it's incumbent upon the council to follow the state law, which is, and I'm not aware if you know better than I guess is it's incumbent upon you to follow the state law.
Our city attorney to speak to Mr. Holliday's point about that being the floor that we have the.
Mr. Holiday had it right. No one requires you to do this. If you have 33%, you must turn it down. But anything in between is really up to you. But the same doing with the drawing of the map. That's up to you. They have to be benefited in some way. But there's a very broad discretion. The court would look generally favorably upon your action in drawing the lines.
Okay. Commissioner Finch?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Neely?
Are there other entities like this that in fact are, say, not formal hosts, local improvement districts or informal hosts, for example?
I don't know is the real answer. I do know that there are a lot of EIDs around the state, but I don't know if they deviate from the vote. But you're not required to follow the 33%.
I was just wondering if there are any other tools in other areas of the city that are
probably the better practical responder on that.
Lloyd, do you know anything about that?
LID, we know about LID.
Yeah, oh, LID, sure. And then two, you have if the city initiates it, there's a certain percentage that would be required to kill it. You're not required to either do the district or not do the district. It's fully in your discretion.
But it doesn't require a majority affirmative.
No.
So we have other mechanisms that we in fact have used in the past. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Next question.
I was just going to say that it's 2/3 against, can remonstrate against, it's 2/3 of the property owners in area, not by individual, but based on the area they own. I remonstrate against the LID, the commission must reject it.
Okay, so it's different officials. Do you know then of how other communities have dealt with this?
Sure, we've done
particularly those two issues, the voting and the carving out of shaping of the district.
We've chatted with, talked with both city staff and the downtown staff in McMinnville, Corvallis, through the work of Terry Benkett. We've done some research in some other downtowns as well. They follow this process. It's the process the state allows the commission to follow. I guess my sense is trying to bless you. It's the process the city's allowed to do. So places like McMinnville, Corvallis, Baker City that have EIDs can follow the same process. The fewer than 33% need to remonstrate or reject, and they draw lines based on their service area. We've in fact reduced the service area with EID based on what our concept is for downtown. There's parts of the downtown geographic area that were originally drawn 2 years ago for the formation of Main Street, Oregon City. We brought that in a little bit because some of those areas that are outlined don't benefit from what we're doing. If you're north of Abernethy Creek, you're probably not benefiting from what's happening on Main Street or on Washington Street. So we have taken good thought into how we come up with the right service area.
Okay, other speakers? I see none, so if there is no more on this topic, then we will hold this over for next meeting. Dan, do you want to put the final word?
Yeah, just a clarification from council. Do they need to approve this tonight to go to the next public hearing?
It depends. Do you want to have a first hearing tonight? If you want a first reading tonight, you can do that. If you want to hold over, as I read this, as an ordinance for introduction, with the idea that you may want to play with the map or with the formulas, it's fine.
The other question is the ordinance as proposed specifies December 1st as the next public hearing. And if they don't take action tonight, we'll have to change that date. Is that I think that's correct.
You would have had the ordinance adopted in any event, Madam Mayor, because you need 2 readings.
Yeah.
So, okay, I don't see any problem.
Well, December 1st is the third meeting from now. Right?
That's true. But you would have to, if you're going to carry it over till the first meeting in November, you're not going to make it 30 days.
Yeah.
December 1.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Commissioner West.
Well, I'll move for approval for the first reading for the ordinance for introduction for number 10-1011, the creation of an economic improvement district.
Second, I have a question.
Commissioner, moved by Commissioner West, seconded by Commissioner Neely, and then now Commissioner Neely.
There's nothing precluding us from opening the public hearing before the second reading.
Absolutely.
Oh, no.
I think we
That's the
plan on doing that. So some of the issues I think that we will want to address. Again, I'd like your property owners to talk about, in these economic times, is this, what's the benefit? What about, are the boundaries, should the boundaries remain as they are? And then secondly, what about the vote? So,
what about the vote? Changing.
Just when people come to testify, I think it's good to address those topics. Those are the ones that have been, about which some people have questions. So, with that, then we'll move on to the reading. So, please.
Ordinance number 10-1011, an ordinance creating the downtown economic improvement district.
Thank you. Is there any further comments? Nancy, the vote, please.
Commissioner Nocita. Commissioner Neely.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Mayor Norris.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Next, thank you all for coming. Next, we have another introductory ordinance, and that is the adoption of the Oregon Solar Installation Specialty Code, which is aligning our code with the state code. As you need, please keep your comments in so we can continue our business meeting. Thank you. Who is introducing this?
I will be, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Tony, our Community Development Director.
Thank you. I'll be presenting for your consideration tonight approval the first reading of ordinance number 10-1010, which is adopting the Oregon Solar Installation Specialty Code, setting the second reading for November 3rd, 2010. And at that time, we'll also be bringing back the resolution to amend the building fee schedule if this is approved, to let the fees associated with implementation of this new section of the Oregon City Municipal Code. This is from the state building code. It's a new section that will be added into our building code and will reference right back to the state standards. What this is doing is it's reviewing and creating a process to review solar installation, the structural installation and inspection for solar unit, residential, and it'll be applicable for commercial as well. It's setting up a two-tiered system. It's really promoting installation of solar on smaller size solar units on residential units. So it's streamlined that process for those smaller installations as well as capping the fees associated with that. And then it would also be applicable for larger installations that you see on larger commercial buildings or institutional buildings. But once again, all we're doing is amending the Oregon City Municipal Code to reference back to the state building code. And then if this is approved tonight, the first reading, for the second reading, we will be coming back with a resolution to implement the fees necessary to do the inspections and reviews of those plans.
Okay, questions about this ordinance? Commissioner Neely. Or that was last time? Okay. If there are no questions, then all this does is align with Oregon statute. So please may I have a motion?
Okay.
Commissioner West?
I will move for approval for first reading of ordinance for introduction. Is that right? No. Yeah, number 10-1010, adoption of the Oregon Solar Installation Specialty Code.
Okay. Moved by Commissioner West, seconded by Commissioner Nocita. For the code introduction, anybody have any more questions or comment? For the first reading, Mr. Sullivan.
This is ordinance number 10-1010, an ordinance amending Title 15 Buildings and Construction, Chapter 15.04, Building Code, Section 15.04.010 of the Oregon City Municipal Code of 1991, and enacting new Title 15, Building and Construction, Chapter 15.04, Building Code, Section 15.04.010.
Thank you. And now to vote, please, Nancy.
Commissioner Nocita.
Aye.
Commissioner Neely.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Mayor Norris.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Moving into our general business agenda, we have for the second reading ordinance 10-1008.
Before we go into general business, could we take a 5-minute break?
Take a break? Okay. We will take a break then. We'll be in recess till 8:05.
Got so many guys there.
10-4 in a row.
Same questions as before. Has anybody since the last meeting received any ex-party contacts? Okay. And is anybody's status changed as to interest or, I'm sorry. Right, that's part of the record. I'm not counting that. Anybody's position on bias or interest in the outcome change? No. Okay. Same cautions that the issues must be limited to those that are in the staff report. It's now beyond that time. You've had all the issues before you. You now have this matter for decision before you. You're not required to hear anybody, but you may certainly talk with your staff, and if you want comments from anybody else, you can certainly take those comments.
So, and that was till the 13th of this month. We did receive comments from the Hamlet of Beaver Creek, which were provided to you in your packet. At that hearing, you also indicated that you would not be taking public testimony tonight.
Oh, thank you.
And that but you did reserve the right to call up any applicant or citizen if you had questions. So that's where that was left. We did receive just now a letter dated October 20th from Ms. Kaczynski that she'd like to put in the record. I believe I'd recommend that it not be entered into the record. Mr. Sullivan?
This is the one we were referring to, actually.
Well, I haven't seen it.
Got a date?
You received one that was in your packet online dated October 13th.
Okay.
We were just handed one 5 minutes ago, dated today.
You should make a decision as to whether or not to include this matter in the record.
Would you like to look at it first?
I guess so. Yes, it was.
Can you make that available to Mr. Sullivan? Regarding that, we did indicate that written testimony was to be in a week prior to our meetings.
Correct. And so then staff received the written comment from the Hamlet of Beaver Creek on the 13th. We then reviewed the information that was submitted, and then prepared a memorandum that was sent out to you, the commission, last night. If the commission decides to move forward with this application, work with Mr. Sullivan, we've prepared a resolution number 10-27 to adopt findings in response to the comments submitted by the Beaver Creek Hamlet in their October 13th letter. So while Mr. Sullivan's reviewing that, if you'd like, I can.
I'll give it in, yes.
Okay.
Sure.
So in the comments that you received dated the October 13, 2010 letter from the Hamlet, I identified several issues, but we took the comments straight from the letter and then prepared findings and responses for the commission based on the existing record. And I will go through those quickly. If you have certain questions, please feel free to ask, or if I missed something, I'd be happy to go back and try to address it. We're going to address these generally because there was a lot of information in there, and all of it is in the record in the memorandum that we did prepare for you.
Do you want us to hold our questions to the end, or
if you'd like,
probably in the interest of not moving screens, if you just give me a clue, you want to ask a question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the first issue concerns the applicability of Title 11, the Metro concept planning process and this is for properties that were recently added to a jurisdiction's urban growth boundary. The property in question, the subject site, was added to the urban growth boundary in 1979 prior to the adoption of Title 11, and Metro does concur that those requirements are not applicable to this property. Concerning the density, they reference transferring the density from the Beaver Creek concept plan. When we performed the Beaver Creek concept plan, we had to make assumptions and projections on how much residential density we would have on the properties inside the concept plan area. This property
in that calculation was assumed to have 0 residential properties assigned to it. So in meeting the housing needs of the region, 0 was assumed on this property. Even though it would be a permitted use, because of the mixed use nature of it, the mixed employment nature of that, we realized there would be some housing in it, potentially, but that we would not use that in demonstrating compliance with the housing needs. So, you know, their reference to density, I'm assuming is residential, concerning residential urbanization or residential sprawl outside of the urban growth boundary into rural lands. That being said, I think that addresses the question based on what we can tell from what they had submitted. They raised an issue concerning the piecemeal development of the land and concept planning. Once again, this goes back to the applicability of Title 11, the dimensional requirement for concept planning. We just discussed that. And as this, and the compatibility of this with the area. If this property is approved for the zone change and the comp plan amendment, and if the applicant does decide to come in for a development, the existing Oregon City Municipal Code would be applicable. The site plan design review code for design, pedestrian access, street improvements, as well as any conditions of approval that are associated with this decision tonight. The financial impact, we prepared a finding indicating that financial impact is not an approval criteria that is considered, and that the commission will not be using that as a consideration, whether it be the applicant's financial, what he revealed concerning the financial situation of his loan with the property, nor the ability of the applicant to provide improvements, proving that they had the financial means to provide improvements at a later date, such as the proportional share for the right turn lane of Myers Road onto 213. That is a condition of approval. If the applicant cannot meet it, the development does not go forward. It is a very straightforward method that we use in land use applications when we review developments. It's a standard condition. There were several issues raised concerning the adequacy and accuracy of the transportation report that was prepared by the applicant. That transportation report was, the scope was reviewed and approved by the city, our consultant who does the transportation reviews for the city, as well as the Oregon Department of Transportation's Planning and Transportation Group. The assumptions were vetted and approved, the methodology as well as the findings of that report. They did identify a significant effect, which when you do a comprehensive plan amendment, you need to show compliance with the transportation planning rule for the state of Oregon. That's a 0.01 increase at the level of service of an intersection, and that was found, the significant effect was found for Myers Road at 213, and that's why we put in the condition of approval that the right turn lane will be put in, which will address that level of service at that intersection, and the applicant will be responsible for paying their proportional share for the number of trips that go through that intersection to construct that right turn lane to meet that level of service standard. There were several references to the Myers Road extension. The Myers Road extension was not proposed by the applicant. The Myers Road extension has been in the Oregon City Transportation Plan since 2001. Providing local connectivity and alternative routes is a goal of the city, and it's very important for transportation systems to be able to function appropriately. So the applicant utilized our transportation system plan, the projects that we have planned, when designing and reviewing the transportation impacts, and we believe the Myers Road extension is an important part of the city's transportation system, not only for vehicles, but for pedestrians and bicycles. There's an issue raised about the queuing at Myers Road by the high school and large trucks on that street. Transportation volumes at that intersection were analyzed as part of the transportation report, and level of service standards for queuing and movements were not found to be outside of the requirements, level of service standards of the municipal code. So to sum up the transportation component, local connectivity creates new local streets, local connectivity, will create new routes that are being used by folks when they're driving, and that will be a redistribution of where those trips go. That would account for the reduction at the intersection of 213 and Malala as other options are presented, whether it be coming up 213 or down 213 or across from Beaver Creek Road and into Oregon City. That modeling was reviewed and approved, and those numbers were looked at, and those findings are accurate. The applicant has presented no evidence whatsoever that any of the findings in the transportation report, any of the methodology, or any of the analysis is inaccurate, defective in any way. Concerning goal 6.1, which deals with air quality, this is from the Oregon City Comprehensive Plan, and the goal 6.1 is we promote a land use pattern that reduces the need for distance travel by single occupancy vehicles and increase opportunities for walking, biking, and air transit to destinations such as employment, shopping, and education. This is not a straight subdivision. This is not single-family detached residential. This is a mixed-use corridor designation that has a wide range of uses that would be available to development on this site. As well, if this property is developed, you do have the Oregon City Municipal Code standards being utilized on this development, which would include improvements to the street, construction of sidewalks, installation of streetlights, et cetera, all the things that bring a rural road up to an urban standard. All of those things are improvements for bicycle and pedestrian mobility along that corridor and access to that site. Concerning statewide goal 14, which concerns urbanization, the orderly and efficient transition from rural to urban uses, as well as the efficient use of public infrastructure. This is in the city limits. You have availability along a major transportation corridor. You have water, sanitary sewer available to be extended to the site. And once again, there's reference in there to this is a waste of public dollars. This is not a public project. The public is not extending the sewer. The public is not extending the water. As development comes in, they extend those services and they make the half street and street improvements that are necessary to accommodate the impacts associated with that project. The last issue raised is noticing and statewide goal 1, public participation. We included a finding reiterating what the standards of the Oregon City Municipal Code are, which are noticing that everyone within 300 feet, noticing to the CIC, the neighborhood association, in this case Caulfield, posting the property with the land use notice indicating the night of the hearing, what the application actually is, noticing in the newspaper. We also posted it on our web. Also the jurisdiction that's responsible for looking at Beaver Creek Road in concert and cooperation with Oregon City is Clackamas County. This application is sent to Clackamas County Planning Department and Clackamas County Transportation Department. There were no comments received back from them indicating any problems with the proposed application. So that's a very brief summary of quite a bit of information that you did receive both in the Hamlet of Beaver Creek written comments and the memorandum that was prepared by staff and the attorney. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. I think since Commissioner Smith has joined us from Rocky, I would probably need to make sure that you would.
I checked with him. There's no ex parte contacts, no change in interest.
Okay, good. Well, then let's continue. Did you want to address the letter?
Yeah, I've had a chance to read it. I'm sorry that there weren't enough copies apparently to go around.
Hand out.
No, this was fifth thing we wanted.
None of us have them.
No,
We've not seen the letter.
Okay.
So I thought that this was a determination of whether we actually will see the letter.
All right. The letter contains additional argument to the points that have been raised. I don't think it raises new facts, but I've just gotten to see it for 2 minutes before this proceeding started. There is an issue about a continuing cycle of answers, response, and all that. The applicant hadn't seen this, I hadn't seen it, so it's a little difficult to to make sure everything is copacetic. My suggestion is that because this is a new argument and this is new reiteration of points made already, that you not accept it for the record. You need to make a motion whether you want to take it in or not.
I'll move to accept it.
Excuse me?
I move to accept it.
No, I'm not seeing it. I don't know.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
A motion.
A motion to
accept the letter.
accept this letter.
There is no second. Well, I prefer to see the letter, but hey. It's fine.
No, we have to, a second. Motion died, of course, have another motion. Let's see, do we have speakers here? We did, I think, you know, how firm was our deadline? I think we were pretty clear about that, about written testimony. Sorry. Yes, Commissioner West.
Oh, yeah, I'm just confused at why we would accept it when we've extended this twice now, and Ms. Kaczynski was here that night and heard that. I just don't understand why we would.
It's a response to the staff findings.
Oh, is it for you?
What it is.
Could I make a different suggestion?
Commissioner Healy?
We actually give representatives of the Hamlet of Beaver Creek an opportunity to verbally respond to these findings.
You can do that.
You want a motion to that?
No, just to see if other commissioners do that, so we can take the written materials or we can have approval. We said that we weren't going to do that except for respond to questions.
Well, if it's direct response to staff comments, I have no problem hearing.
We also could take the letter and read that and read that.
Read copies of the letter, that's fine.
At some point, staff has to give you recommendations. At some point, the testimony has to stop.
No, I understand.
And if we are going to take testimony or the written comments in, the applicant in a land use hearing gets the last response.
Yeah.
And just hopefully remember that in terms of.
No, I think we can listen. I think we could. The representative from the Hamlet Beaver Creek can read the letter if they want as their response to the staff's response, and then the applicant go ahead and respond if they wish, and then we can go ahead and proceed.
Or we can take the letter and have a moment to read it.
Well, we don't have a copy.
Well, we have copies, so.
You want the written? The applicant have a chance to respond.
I'm not sure that I want to really extend the hearing, though I want an opportunity to.
I'm going to move for a representative of the Hamlet of Beaver Creek to go and respond to the staff's response.
So then we'll continue on with the rebuttal then from the response.
Yes.
The applicant does have the right under state statute to have not only the last word, but 7 days after all other testimony and argument are done to have the last word. I don't know if they're going to ask for that, but.
Well, thank you for registering.
So that's my motion.
Is there a second to that motion? I'll second. Moved by Commissioner Neely and seconded by Commissioner Nocita to permit oral comment from the Hamlet of Beaver Creek. Any comments? Ma'am, take the vote, please.
Commissioner Nocita?
Aye.
Commissioner Neely?
Aye.
Commissioner West?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith? Aye. Mayor Norris?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, so we'll provide an opportunity for the representative of Beaver Creek Hamlet to come, and then 3 minutes for that opportunity, and then opportunity for the rebuttal from the applicant. And the same rules apply. I think everyone knows for introducing yourself.
I can't read the letter in 3 minutes. And I have 5.
Let's see where you go.
I'll hurry. Christine Kaczynski, I'm here to represent the Hamlet of Beaver Creek. I'm the corresponding secretary and co-speaker. Honorable Mayor Norris and Commission, the Hamlet of Beaver Creek enters this letter into the City of Oregon City records for the above land use applications. The Hamlet extends their appreciation to the city by recognizing the fact that the city gave them 7 days in which to respond to the staff report and application from the city. The hamlet adequately responded within the time period given. We bring to your attention that Tony Conkle, planner for Oregon City, sent email to the hamlet last night at 6:38 p.m. attaching a staff memorandum from the city in response to the many concerns raised by the hamlet of Beaver Creek. The letter that we're giving you this evening is our response to that, and we felt that you would want that. In our letter of October 13th of this year, the hamlet brought forth many strong concerns for consideration and questioned the reasoning of the city in allowing the zone change to be considered for approval, even though in Oregon City staff memorandum, each of our concerns were addressed. It is consistently pointed out by city staff that the hamlet of Beaver Creek either failed to demonstrate which criteria were not met, or that no facts offered to support this opinion, or that the hamlet has submitted no cognizable evidence or credible argument to the contrary. The hamlet takes exception to these comments on the part of city staff. If the city had been dutiful and a good neighbor, we should have been rightfully notified in July of 2010 of the Planning Commission hearings for these land use applications. Because the hamlet was notified after the Planning Commission had already met and approved the application, they were completely left out and deprived of having the ability to fully participate from the beginning of the hearings in front of the Planning Commission. Issues and concerns such as piecemeal development were not addressed in the staff memorandum, and we continue to question the findings in the transportation report. For example, the city states it has made the finding that the Myers Road extension improvement is reasonably likely to be provided by the planning horizon year 2027.
Yeah, you
have an opportunity. Yes.
The hamlet takes exception with the language reasonably likely and would like the city to replace this language stating that the Myers Road extension improvement will be built at the time development is approved for both of these land use applications.
It will allow you to finish the letter.
To wait until the year of 2027, we feel is far too late and not acceptable since traffic will become prohibitively difficult in this area. The hamlet of Beaver Creek states that the Kittleson report and city staff report fails to identify any true mitigation for the transportation issues which currently exist. What you have proposed is simply no mitigation that will be effective for these traffic impacts. Also, under transportation in the city's staff memorandum, city staff states the TIA was prepared in consultation with and reviewed by ODOT and city staff and found to comply with all applicable transportation standards. We point out once again that the hamlet of Beaver Creek was not invited to be a part of these meetings, and therefore their concerns were never heard. We questioned the lower density of this 9.59 acre parcel, even though you failed to recognize this in your staff memorandum. So this parcel was previously part of the concept plan. A much larger market and retail center were planned, and this area was to be the cornerstone for this community. By taking it away from the concept plan, where will your cornerstone now be? We continue to have concerns that the city will request to transfer density in the future, which is certain to place more density towards our rural lands. We want you to know that the hamlet does not question that Oregon City can legally do this, and we do not question your ability in this land use application. However, we do question whether this zone change makes sense. Oregon City has dedicated much time, energy, and hundreds of thousands of dollars into designing and developing a concept plan. Why is the city now willing to throw away all of this and now reconsider rezoning this parcel for just one person? Additionally, will the city do this for every other person involved in the concept plan? Do you realize you are setting a precedent for just one person? Are you willing to take this risk? We wonder why the city is in such a hurry to approve this zone change from MEV to MEC1, when the applicant is on record stating they propose no development at this time. It makes no sense for the city to recognize its neighbors by remanding this land use application back to the Planning Commission, allowing the hamlet of Beaver Creek to participate in these hearings. Oregon City has fought the notification of the hamlet of Beaver Creek on a mere technicality. We feel that since this parcel is contiguous to the Beaver Creek Road Concept Plan, and because 6,500 people in the community of Beaver Creek must rely daily on this road, that notice of the Planning Commission hearings should have been timely sent to the hamlet. For the record, the hamlet of Beaver Creek boundaries are only 826 feet from land use application Z1001. Therefore, Oregon City is truly fighting the hamlet over a technicality. In ending, we continue to request that the city correct its past actions upon the hamlet and remand these land use applications back to the Planning Commission. Additionally, we understand from county staff that Mr. Conkle has informally agreed to send all future land use application notices to both the hamlet of Beaver Creek, the Holcomb Outlook CPO, and the Central Point New Era CPO, which are three CPOs bordering the city of Oregon City. The hamlet of Beaver Creek requests the City Commission to act upon this agreement tonight by formally writing this agreement into City Code, and after approved, we ask that all land use notices be sent by both U.S. mail as well as email as a precaution in the event that mail is not timely delivered. We sincerely thank you for recognizing the hamlet of Beaver Creek and their concerns regarding these land use applications. We look forward to working with you as a partner on all future land use applications. Signed by Christine Kuczynski.
Thank you. Now the applicant, please. Would you please relinquish your seat? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the Commission. Jeff Kleinman, attorney for the applicant, 707 Southwest 6, Portland, 97204. Sort of a funny situation because you don't have the letter that was just read to you in front of you. Most of it is just, you do have it now. Most of it is simply a repetition of what's been stated once or twice or three times before. You've chosen to hear it. I have no objection on behalf of the applicant to your hearing it as a courtesy to the hamlet. I do have an objection to part of a paragraph, and I direct you to the second page of the letter. The long paragraph in the middle of the page that starts with the words issues and concerns such as piecemeal development. And don't have an objection to the first two sentences, which are the first three lines of that paragraph, but I formally object and move that you strike from the record the rest of the paragraph, which takes objection to the language reasonably likely in the findings with respect to the improvements in question regarding Myers Road, arguing that reasonably likely is not good enough, 2027 is too late, and making an argument or contention about the Kittleson report and the earlier staff report. The fact of the matter is that the words reasonably likely with respect to these improvements were requested by ODOT, and that is why, since it was a supportable determination, the city staff and planning commission proposed that finding. This is not new in the staff memorandum that was emailed to the hamlet and others yesterday. This has been in the city's file, all of the language that I'm objecting to in that paragraph, from before this ever got to the planning commission. So there has been ample opportunity to raise these arguments, which are in part new issues. And as a result, I would ask that these new arguments and these new issues, which are in the part of that paragraph, other than the first three lines, I would ask that you strike those from the record and not receive them.
The question of the attorney is it necessary to strike it?
What it would do would be to exclude it from the record. If, and I'm going to have to rely on Mr. Conkle on this, if this is the first time that this particular issue has been raised in the very close, then I think it is strikeable. If it has been raised before, then I think you should leave it in. Mr. Conkle.
The new language? Or
The argument that's made in the language that Mr. Kleinman objected to on page 2 of the Hamlet's letter. It's beyond the first 4 lines of that paragraph. Madam Mayor, you may want to give a moment to look at it.
I was going to say attorney. The question. Reading this letter in entirety into the record, does that result in some legal issues that might be appealable?
By the applicant, perhaps. I tend to think, or maybe disagreement in the room, that Lupa is going to take this as argument already, unless this portion that Mr. Kleinman objected to is raised for the first time.
Okay.
And just to be clear, what I see as being raised for the first time is a challenge to the sufficiency of the finding requested by ODOT that the improvement was reasonably likely, etc. And secondly, that 2027 is too long to wait. This has been there in this case all along. And I do not believe it's been raised by opponents before.
Only select 20 design. Maybe recess.
In the October 13th letter submitted by the Hamlet of Beaver Creek, they are, I'll go ahead and read this section in real quick. ODOT recognized that the westbound right turn lane is also needed to mitigate for the traffic impacts associated with the Beaver Creek concept plan area. ODOT then states it supports the findings and recommended mitigation identified in the TIA with the following provisions to ensure no significant effect on OR 313. The City of Oregon City documents through the land use decision that the Myers Road extension improvement is reasonably likely to be provided by the planning horizon year 2027. So far, that's the only reference. That's
this repeating what the city has found, but they do not challenge it as they now do for the first time, I believe, in this new letter.
Yeah, I don't see any question of what's reasonably likely or that it be required that it be, as stated in, that it be changed from a reasonably likely to a will be. That's the only reference that I found is going to be reasonably likely.
Okay. So then, are we determining that this is an argument that's been raised for the first time?
That seems to be what I hear from Mr. Conkle. And if it is, it appears to be unfair to raise this after everybody else has had a chance to raise issues and respond to those issues.
Can we both understand this with the understanding that the commission is simply not.
So you should do that by motion.
Okay. I move that the portion beginning of the Hamlet takes exception to the language to the end of the paragraph be not considered by this commission.
Otherwise, the.
Sorry, can we hold on before we go on that real
Okay.
quick? It's vague, and I'll let you interpret what it's saying. Regarding condition 2, this is dealing with the right turn lane at the intersection. They talk about, can the applicant financially contribute funding to the city for the construction of the westbound right turn lane? So they're not specifically talking about the extension of Myers Road. It seems like they're talking about an intersection improvement of Myers Road. It is identified as number 2. They identify number 1 as the reasonably likely issue, and then the second one is that the second issue is the condition requiring the applicant to contribute to the funding.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Let's see, moved by Commissioner Neely and seconded, I've forgotten who. Did anyone? I didn't hear a second.
I'll second it.
Moved by Commissioner West. Okay, to enter the letter into the record, but the commission must disregard the bulk of this paragraph in our deliberations. Further clarification or comments? Anthony, vote please.
Commissioner Messina.
Abstain.
Commissioner Neely.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Mayor Norris.
Aye, motion passes 4-0 with 1 abstention. May I ask for your abstention? Commissioner Messina.
No.
Okay. All right, then let's move on then
She didn't have to say yes.
Dan, let's move on then to a determination of what we want to do with this. Do you have further comments? Are you
No, but I just wanted to state that without disrespect to this letter, I have no further rebuttal to offer. Nothing else in here is new, and we've made our comments. So thank you.
Thank you. These are final staff.
Judges, a couple points. Concerning reasonably likely, we did work with Oregon Department of Transportation in that language. And the reason that we determined it was reasonably likely is that the Myers Road extension is in the transportation system plan. We are collecting system development charges to implement that improvement. We've already constructed a portion of it. We also have a condition of approval associated with Clackamas Community College on their master plan concerning Myers Road. So with all of those in place, it is, in our opinion, our consultant's opinion, as well as the Oregon Department of Transportation's opinion, that is a reasonably likely situation, street improvement to be constructed. Concerning the cornerstone, that this property is the cornerstone of the Beaver Creek concept plan, and that is in reference to the Main Street section. The Main Street section of the Beaver Creek concept plan is actually located at the Glen Oak Road intersection. It is not located at the Myers Road intersection where the property is located. The concept plan, and this is part of it. This was a hard one. This property was brought into the UGB in 1979. It has a metro designation. It had a comprehensive plan designation from the city of Oregon City on that property from 1979 until 2005. At which point we began working with the Beaver Creek concept plan on that area. This property was not brought into the UGB for employment lands. It was not brought in for jobs. It has been in the UGB, and it is in our city limits at this point. Not to point out technicalities, the hamlet of Beaver Creek is not a property owner. They are not entitled to notice under the Oregon City Municipal Code. We strive to provide public notice to the best of our ability and do exactly what our code says, and I believe we exceed what our code says in terms of public notice. I would disagree, and I will take it up with Clackamas County, that the hamlet of Beaver Creek boundaries extend inside of our urban growth boundary and inside of our city limits. It's inaccurate to say how close they are. Per our neighborhood associations extend to our urban growth boundary. So there would be some disagreement. We would clean up that map. Not that I'm objecting, and I did put in a policy that all the CPOs that border our jurisdiction will receive land use notices in the future, since it would be very difficult for staff to pick and choose which ones might be of concern to those CPOs. So with that, I would once again reiterate that a lot of analyzation, a lot of work have gone into the scope, the methodology of the transportation report that was presented to you, and the findings that were crafted in the review of the intersections that are impacted. The applicant has provided no evidence or facts that rebut any of the findings or the methodology or the scope of the transportation report. Concerning some of the policies, we have comprehensive plan policies. We believe that they meet them. We'd be happy to discuss any of those with you. And as we pointed out in the staff report, and I pointed out to the Planning Commission, I believe that the hardest one was we have a comprehensive plan policy that talks about concept planning for the lands east of Beaver Creek Road, and that's where we weighed a property that's been inside the urban growth boundary since 1979 versus a majority of those lands out there that were brought in 2002 and 2004 for different uses. And that was where we made our finding, and the Planning Commission did support that, and we just bring that to your attention. That is all I have.
Okay, it's time for the commission to deliberate. This is the second reading, so we have already fully, I think, questioned the opportunity, the project and the criteria. So if there are any other discussions or motion, please, Commissioner Nocita.
I have discussion. What I would like to do is refer the commission to the exhibit that is entitled Final Conditions of Approval. I think I referred to this last time to read this item. I indicated last time that I really feel that that should not be addressed until the Beaver Creek concept plan has been adopted. And I think it was Mayor Norris that asked me what was wrong with this proposed conditions of approval by the applicant, that it didn't satisfy me. And I probably didn't focus the commission as closely as I thought I should have, but I do want to draw the commission's attention to paragraph number 2.
One more time, you're referring to which?
It's the final conditions of approval. Yeah. Final conditions of approval, scroll down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the paragraph 1 is okay. It's paragraph 2 that is a problem for me.
I'm sorry. Is it the conditions 1, 2, 3, 4, or are you?
Yeah, that's the Kleinman letter.
So you're talking about number paragraph 2?
Number 2. Paragraph number 2.
Yeah. Second paragraph on page 1.
I'm sorry. We have another titled Final Conditions of Approval at the top as well.
Wait till the title gets there. Right there. Okay, please continue.
I want to get to relate this to Ms. Kaczynski's point about a cornerstone, whether that was actually used or not. My significant concern about what's happening here is these concept plans, be it Park Place or Beaver Creek, were really designed to create real livable communities by good planning. The planning process was very careful. There's a lot of urban design drawings in these plans, and they really create, a well thought out community. And if all that is tossed and piecemealed, then I think all that effort will be lost. Paragraph 2, I want you to kind of hopefully realize what exactly it's saying. If the Beaver Creek Road concept plan is not yet adopted at the time the applicant seeks development approval, the applicant's proposal shall be consistent with the intent of the mixed employment village to be transit supported in its use, mix, design, density, and design. Now, what's that saying? They're
they're not promising to adhere to any design standards like they would under if the concept plan had been adopted. All they're committing to is that the proposal shall be consistent with the intent as far as being transit supportive in its use, mixed density, and design. So you can be transit supportive and still be abominable, an abomination architecturally to really conflict with the design standards of the Beaver Creek concept plan when they're adopted. So you can have any kind of strip mall without any kind of standards whatsoever, as long as it's transit supportive. It doesn't promise anything as far as how it's going to fit into the context of the Beaver Creek development overall. And I think that's just not acceptable to me. And that's why I really urge the Commission to reconsider this and not approve it.
Anyone have a response? We cannot predict when the Beaver Creek Road Concept Plan will be adopted, hopefully soon. All of many of the properties that come in will come in piecemeal. They won't come in all at once. I guess I'm more trusting that the proposal shall be consistent with the intent, and that it's up to our planning staff to make sure that that occurs. I don't know if I have any problems with that. Spent very little time with this, and
this type of piecemeal approval would just sabotage the purpose of the Beaver Creek concept plan.
I don't see a difference.
I think I do actually.
You want to speak to that?
Well, I guess what I'm going to do is pose a question to our attorney. For a reasonable time, is there any way that we can condition a development plan coming in terms of time?
What do you want to do?
Well, the thing is, I assume, and it's an assumption that we are in fact going to have a Beaver Creek concept plan within a certain period of time. My understanding is Metro is working on their EMAD issues. I guess there's inconsistency between the 2040 plan and that's probably more of a Metro issue to deal with. But I presume we will have something before us within a year or so. Can we condition it in time for a development?
What do you want to condition? If it was a development that comes in the meantime?
Yeah, can we well, you don't know how long it's going to take. I mean, I guess somebody could send it back to Luba or something like that. The point is, if this goes on forever and ever and ever, I think we're really punishing the property owner. The question is, can we condition it that this development agreement, development plan does not come before us within a certain period of time? Reasonable time.
The first thing you got, any development here is going to be discretionary development. You have the authority to call up any decision that's made by any inferior authority. So you could require the planning staff to advise you if there is an application, so that you could see what is done with it and call it up if you feel it necessary. If you're going to amend the conditions, I'm going to read it again, and that's not a problem. And then you may have to have a different second reading.
The call-up, if I may, the call-up, it seems to me if we call this up, we would have no standards by which to evaluate it once we did call up.
All you'd have is what you have in the conditions here. That's right.
Yeah, and that's the word. I understand the word.
Lily, concerning your timing issue, because of the LUBA process that we've gone through, the actual code for Beaver Creek is not written nor adopted. So we'd be adopting the concept plan, but let's say we put a condition in and said you shall not come in for a year. We would have to write the Beaver Creek code and get it adopted within that time period, because if they came in, we still don't have a Beaver Creek code to implement the concept plan today. So, not that there's you know, if I had a code sitting out there, I would have put it in the conditions and said this is what we would use. But we don't have that code existing today.
This is a very patient property owner as well.
It is, and the thing is, we've had these properties annexed into the city for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And
no movement.
And no movement. And I think we share your concerns, but I also have to be concerned with people who have annexed into the city and paid into the city taxes in that period of time, and have to wait indefinitely before they can do anything. And I guess that's a major concern on my part.
If I could, Mr. Sullivan, considering that condition where it says the applicant's proposal shall be consistent with the intent of the mixed employment village, and the way I read that is it opens up to a very discretionary process.
Indeed. And to add to Mr. Kunkel's statement, you're not completely bereft of any discretion at all. It's the contours of that discretion that we're really talking about. You don't have the exactitude that a concept plan and the implementing code, but you're not left with nothing. So the issue for you is whether or not, with the panoply of discretion that you have, whether that's good enough for you. And I understand there's different views of the commission.
Yeah, I guess I would say, from what Mr. Funk, excuse me,
Go ahead.
From what Mr. Conkle said is, if you enter the period where you entered the period, the intent of the mixed employment village period, I wouldn't have any problem with it. But that's not really what the statement is. It really deals in dealing with the transit supported that you're talking about. If you ended it with the period, we can do a new ordinance. I mean, put forward the first reading. If you enter the period there, this employment village period, I don't think I'd have a problem with it.
I would ask Mr. Conkle to explain what that would, given Commissioner Neely's amendment, can you describe to that what that would mean as a practical matter?
We can call it in.
Yeah, it can be called up. We already know that.
Through the concept plan, we have the mixed employment village description that's in the record that describes what's envisioned for that area. What the envisioned uses would be, what the envisioned, an active streetscape. They're very general terms.
But how can I guess my question would be, how could you be consistent with the intent of the mixed employment village, as soon as the mixed employment village of the Beaver Creek concept plan? The concept plan isn't adopted yet.
You can point to that as a standard.
Even though it is an unadopted
plan, because you're setting those as the criteria within the ordinance itself.
We have the plans. It's been for a long time in development. From those meetings, we know what was expected at the time.
Well, okay. I guess my point then would be, going back to paragraph 1. What you're saying is true, that even though it's unadopted, it has standards. Then, are the design and performance standards in that last sentence in paragraph 1? Are they drafted but not adopted also? And could they be?
No. There is a very rough draft that has never gone. It has not gone through. When we had set up the Citizen Advisory Committee, it was staff working as we were working on the concept plan. We were writing code at the same time. It never was vetted through the public process. It's very, very rough.
But what is it about the mixed employment villages described in that paragraph that would make them amenable as some type of even broadly discretionary standard to be able to call upon or to make planning commission review? What is the mixed employment village? I mean, if I had a definition of what that was, it would be very helpful. I mean, when you say those three words, mixed employment village, are there any prototypes, of design that could serve as a guide? If that were the case, I might be quite amenable to Commissioner Neely's proposed amendment.
Do you know which? In the record, we did put in the description from the Beaver Creek Road Concept Plan for the Mixed Employment Village. It'd take me 2 minutes to read it, a minute and a half. Would you like me to read it in real quick?
Okay, we're against it. Go ahead.
The purpose of the Mixed Employment Village is to provide employment opportunities in an urban, pedestrian-friendly, and mixed-use setting. The Mixed Employment Village is intended to be transit-supportive in its use, mix, density, and design so that transit remains an attractive and feasible option. And the Mixed Employment Village allows a mix of retail, office, civic, and residential uses that make up an active urban district and serve the daily needs of adjacent neighborhoods and Beaver Creek Road subdistricts. Site and building design will create pedestrian-friendly areas and utilize cost-effective green development practices. Business and program connections to Clackamas Community College and Oregon City High School are encouraged. Businesses making sustainable products and utilizing sustainable materials and practices are encouraged to reinforce the identity of the area and promote the overall vision of the Beaver Creek Road concept area. And it includes mixed employment center, 3 to 5 story buildings, active streetscape, connectivity to high school and college. So those are that's the description that we have, which then we were going to build and craft code off of.
And so those words should be transported into use, mixed density, and design taken directly from them. Yeah, no, I think there's more. Yeah, no, I understand that. So, Doug, do you have a?
Yeah, I'm gonna put on make a motion that we put this off until the next commission meeting with appropriate drafting of the condition this is a condition. Yeah, this is the following condition. The conditional approval indicated in number 2 paragraph and this letter to Mr. Walden.
So, okay, moved by Commissioner Neely, seconded by Commissioner Zeta. So what is that doing?
Let me suggest that what might be happening if this is consistent with the maker of the motion and the second. I would recommend that we have a new first reading, all right? And that first reading incorporate the change to the condition and the supplemental findings. I would hope that the commission will take no further testimony, but it's really up to you.
But the testimony we received even tonight would be part of the record.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
No, absolutely. You don't remove anything.
No, that's how I see the substance of the motion that's being made.
If you're drafting, if your roles involved in the drafting, I would feel comfortable if that Mixed Employment Village, if the concept plan were actually brought into it in a informal way. Okay, that's my request.
That's the discussion.
If you will, we'll share it with everybody. We'll send you an email with the prototype so that well before the time for filing the ordinance, you'll have seen it.
Okay. Okay, so if this passes, then it's our intent that we will look at new language with first reading, but take no further testimony.
It still is up to you, even if you say
I know Okay, is there further comment or discussion, questions about the that we're voting on? Okay, Nancy, vote please.
Commissioner Zeta?
Aye.
Commissioner Neely?
Aye.
Commissioner West?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith? Mayor North?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Sorry, I guess we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So there'll be 2 more meetings.
Basis of the second meeting, but not, we would have a basis for a second meeting on that night.
You could do it if it's unanimous.
Okay.
There's a possibility then.
I don't know.
The possibility exists. Okay, let's move on then on our agenda since we still have a couple of things to take care of. That concludes our public hearings. Thank you.
Okay, next we have a resolution for the, to approve the downtown circulation study, which we looked at our work session. And I believe that we have a representative of ODOT here, Ryan Newtimer. Welcome, Ryan. Nancy, you want to give us the commission report, please?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. We do have Ryan Winsheimer here from ODOT, and we also have Rachel Produshevsky from the TGM grant program here, if we have any questions of them. I will review what we've gone over before with you very briefly. As you know, we were fortunate to receive a quick response transportation growth management TGM grant from ODOT and Land Conservation and Development Department to study whether or not it makes sense to revert the one-way traffic on Main Street between 6th and 9th to two-way traffic. And we have done a comprehensive scope of work that included really basically many meetings with different stakeholders, including the downtown stakeholder group, including ODOT and the county, our regional partners, TriMet, Metro, and then city staff as well. So I've attached meeting summaries from the many meetings that were held. And the study has resulted in recommendations that were presented to you at your Planning Commission and City Commission work session about a week and a half ago. And from that, then we prepared a resolution that requests that you approve the recommendations from the study, and you also then amend the transportation system plan, capital facilities improvement plan to include certain projects that are recommended out of the study. And I think what we'll do is I prepared a few pages from the final report that summarize what you're being asked to approve in the resolution. And I thought maybe Lloyd Pretty would just go ahead and go with you. I also, before I go up there, though, I did want to mention this has been, the last couple weeks have been fairly fast-tracked because we're trying to keep up with, depending on the outcome of your decision tonight, we're trying to keep up with, trying to coordinate whatever improvements we find are appropriate for the downtown from this study. We're trying to keep up with coordinating with the Arch Bridge project itself. And technicalities with the text from the presentation last week with the text from this final study recommendation. I had to make a few last-minute changes to your resolution. So I tried to submit that to you, redline version, so you could see exactly where these changes were. There's nothing necessarily policy-wise affecting them. Basically listing projects and calling using the right words in the right places. We have a very brief 5-slide PowerPoint for you tonight. Unlike the 80-slide PowerPoint you had, I think, at the work session. So what we have here is the we have the project is recommending two sets of projects. There's the near-term projects, which are to be done as quickly as possible and as coordinated as well as possible, which is realistic, with the actual beginning of construction, which requires the bridge to be closed down. And then there's 2013 projects, which the study recommends be in place when the bridge reopens after the restoration project. And these would result in return of two-way traffic to Main Street, and then some of the ancillary improvements that would need to go with that when the bridge reopens. And this slide summarizes what we did find in terms of if we were able to convert to two-way traffic on Main Street, what we believe is possible in terms of increasing the average daily traffic in front of the businesses on Main Street. And this is a list of what's recommended on the near-term projects, and those are listed in the resolution. There are a couple of bullets I didn't include in the resolution because they're more about project management and coordination with ODOT, but those kinds of things which we do anyway. But the next slide illustrates what those improvements would be, and this is the kind of thing that we'll be adding to our capital improvement program. The removing, let's see, well, I'll just go through my bullets that are in the resolution. Remove the angled parking extensions between 7th and 9th and replace with parallel parking curb extensions. Remove the landscape island at 6th Street.
Is it a parallel parking curb extension?
That would be, right now, the way the curb extensions are configured is to, it's rolled out. It's configured to not allow traffic to go that way on Main Street, so we have to pull those back. But still, we want to have curb extensions so we can shorten the distance to cross with pedestrians. It's far enough out so you can have parallel parking. Restrict roadway for two-way traffic 6 to 9, replace signal with stop signs at Main and 7. Restrict parallel parking and designate 2-hour parking from 6 to 10. Relocate or replace parking meters for parallel parking. These are all just really physical things that need to be done. And determine feasibility of improving Main Street accesses, alley accesses. So that's something we're recommending. We have that discussion with all of the folks that would be impacted by that kind of an action. And then in terms of Main Street bus and trolley, we would only use the trolley layover stuff in front of the courthouse during seasonal operating hours. And we would remove the existing Main Street bus pull out and shelter and move it to a curbside bus stop, and we need to make sure we coordinate that with trying to, essentially what we're trying to achieve is create more parking spaces where there's wasted, except for when the bus is sitting there. And then for long-term projects, there's again a bullet list of those, and this again illustrates the increased traffic when the bridge opens, and what the two-day traffic, what we're anticipating for increased average daily traffic. And here the projects are well illustrated by the drawing. And I would suggest that this is a PowerPoint that is obviously at the meeting, so but I want to make sure that it's in the record so that it's everything illustrated as well. And here we go. Now we have to put that stop sign. We have to convert it back to a forward traffic signal. And we would work with ODOT in determining whether or not we can use the existing signal and change the heads on it for the new two-way configuration, or if indeed we do need to install a completely new traffic signal. And that itself creates a little complication even for the short-term project, because in a couple of the bump outs there at 7th and Main Street, the signals are in those areas. So we have to figure out what are we going to do, replace the signal later, take it out now. There's a fair amount of thought that goes into that. And then we also want to look at analysis before 2013. We want to analyze what are the pros and cons of removing the two alleyways adjacent to the bridge between Main Street and 99E, and how we wanted, what kind of access we'd want to maintain in there to either access parking lots or the existing private parking lots, public parking, delivery trucks, etc. It's going to take some public involvement there. And then we would also be recommending that we install bicycle sharrows on Main Street to improve the ability for bicycle to know where they're supposed to be downtown, and then the cars to also know where the bike is supposed to be, so there's not that conflict of who's got priority here. And then there are some other changes that need to be made because of as you saw, that there's some geometric concerns with the trucks and bus coming off the bridge. They can't make the turns. And then because of the congestion on the bridge and backup queuing that we're expecting could occur if we allow left turns off the bridge, we need to make sure that all of the turning control is in place before we turn the signal back on, so people aren't doing what they're not supposed to do. And this is where we also then bring up, in terms of we're going to limit vehicle access underneath the bridge. And then we have to have the signage up for rerouting trucks, and we have to change railroad to 2 ways, reverse 6th Street, and make 7th Street 2 ways. And then, of course, all the restriping of the angle parking, curbside parallel parking, and then there's some modifications of corners that need to be made for turning movements. There's also the plan itself includes recommendations for the rest of Main Street, and that includes tabled intersections at all of the intersections, which those are actually already included in previous amendment to our CIP, where we discussed which was included so we could submit the sidewalk project for other funding sources and to spend any kind of system development charges on improving the sidewalks for more activity in the future. Lloyd has had a fair amount of involvement with this project, and I thought I was hoping that our audience from the EID would be here for this project with the circulation study, but what it tells me is that I don't think they're opposed, or they would have asked us to move it up or something. So, but Lloyd, if you could provide a little background on what your discussions have been with the folks downtown, that'd be great.
Sure. We have done a lot of public outreach on this, mostly with the business owners, less so with the property owners. I'd say 9 out of 10 like the idea of returning to a two-way Main Street. The biggest concern that comes up is what happens to parking. Of course, with that said, I often hear from a property owner that, oh, there's no parking downtown, but when we walk around the corner and look, there's plenty of parking on a side street. So it's an issue of do we look specifically or do we look district-wide? We also know that with the city's parking plan, there's room to improve on the parking management system that can now tie into some of this.
How closely is that circulation study and the parking study going to be coordinated?
Very closely. As a matter of fact, we met with parking today because even some of the short-term improvements talk about parking meters, and there's some movement to be replacing the old parking meters with pay stations, and I think that the rate increase in parking is possibly going to be coming before you. So that study is moving along.
Does that mean we're going to get all that goopy, sticky stuff in our windows like in Portland?
Yeah. I guess I know that we are, and they are coordinating what efforts need to be coordinated for this, what's before you tonight, to make sure we're, two things that need to be told out later.
Keeping in mind, we think we can add a couple parking spaces in, right? Net, at least a two space lane, and that's
for the 3 blocks.
On the 3 blocks, right?
Well, that's French area.
Are there questions by commissioners?
I just wanted to add that when I attended a work session, a downtown work session with property owners last week about the EID, I think many of them made an assumption that would be a reasonable assumption in most cases, that removing angled parking would diminish the parking spaces. But when they realized that we were going to actually have a net gain of 2, their assumptions, their concerns were satisfied. So I think that is an assumption that's out there that will take a little work for us to dispel. But once that work gets out, I think that'll be fine.
Thank you. Commissioner Neely.
Couple of things. One is, number one is in determined feasibility of curbing Main Street, how it accesses there. That is one of the downtown meetings. I suggested that as a possible extra parking space. And this is just something for you to consider. I don't think it necessarily has to curb it to create the parking space. And the reason I'm saying this is you might have a 3 o'clock deliveries being made to a specific business now there. And for them, it's far more convenient to drive straight out. If the area is in a block of time where it's unlikely to be anybody parking there, that vehicle should have the opportunity to get out if possible. And if there are other reasons for having that curb at this time, That's one thing, but the interest is really to see if there's additional parking spaces, and you may not have to curb it to do it. It's just something for you to think about, and not being always a requirement. The other thing comes down to the parking station, and Commissioner Neceda's point. Portland State has paid parking and parking structures, which you did a slip and put it on your dashboard. You're not dealing with the city stuff. There's a time thing listed right on the thing, so whoever your code enforcement is down there, see if they exceeded it, and it's not as messy. The only problem they had with it is they had vocal communication. That is the person, there's a thing talking to you and what to do. Those things break down, but the thing, the device works well all the time, so maybe there's a thing where you don't have to have somebody.
Yes.
I don't think there's only kind of base station that you need to consider.
I know that our parking division is doing a lot of research in the pay stations, and I'll pass on those.
Any other questions from commissioners?
I guess I did want to mention again that so far the funding for this is not clearly identified, but from what I understand,
that was fully funding.
But I think that that's something that we hope to be continuing to go down on. I have, we're hoping that there may be some funds out there that could be that are the right category to support this kind of a project, given the fact that it's a result of the TGM grant program, and it's such a great. Well, here I'm saying it's such a great. We'll see. Time will tell. But the consultants have told us that it could be fabulous for our downtown businesses, and I know that the state is very supportive of the Main Street program, and we're a regional center. We're trying to develop these kinds of activities, and I'm hoping all those things put together will help the state help us.
I think it's just a very positive move, and I appreciate all the outreach and research that you've done in a pretty short period of time. Okay, we have before us a revised resolution, the one with red lines. So do you have any questions about that? Or are you ready to consider a motion?
Resolution 1026, Resolution 1026.
Just a second. Moved by Commissioner Neely, seconded by Commissioner West. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, Nancy, the vote please.
Commissioner Nocita.
Aye.
Commissioner Neely.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Mayor Norris.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Great. Looking forward to getting that going. Yeah, make sure you corner one and make sure you get some money shaken down before you let them leave.
We're not leaving the house until.
Right. Lock the doors. Sure, please, if you made the effort to come all the way, appreciate that.
Well, thank you for having me. I honestly wasn't planning on sitting here and talking to you, but I did want to see how this went. Again, I'm Ryan Winchester. I'm the Policy and Development Manager for ODOT Region 1. I'm also a member of the Governor's Economic Revitalization Team, and as part of that, as you know, we came in, had a conversation with this community about how we could help through time that we knew was going to potentially cause some difficulties. We went in and produced some the study. You know, got the study going, got consultants on board, spent some time working with the community. I think we found a solution, and I'm pleased to see that you agree that this could be something that you'd be interested in seeing move forward. And with that, you know, that gives me then something to take back to the team and say, we have something positive here that has come out of the work that we've already done. Now, you know, how can we work together to try to get to that next step of how can we try to get this implemented? And that's the thing I look forward to doing, and I'm glad that you guys have taken this step and put this in your plan. And we want to look for, we want to look at ways that we can be helpful in both the short term and the long term. You know, there is some short term opportunities here, and I know Nancy's also applying for some grant money from the Department of Transportation and our T programs and some other downtown sidewalk improvements, lighting, some other things that might also help this community. And so, look forward to getting that application in, and we'll of course take that through our process. But we hope to try to work with you in the shorter term to try to identify some dollars to do implementation of that. So, thank you for.
Excuse me.
I had a follow-up. I just wanted to say, it almost makes me feel like apologizing for all the negative things that are only on public meetings before.
Well, thank you for that. I hope you have an opportunity to regain your.
And I do want to publicly also express thank you for initially stepping up and strongly support this for the initial funding and for the funding for the $22 million for the jug handle. You've really been a strong partner helping us through the morass of challenges that frankly we've had. So we really do appreciate that. Keep working your magic. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. So we don't have anything more on that. Let's move then on to the consent agenda. They have a motion for adoption of the consent agenda minus the dog. Second, please. Moved by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner West. Answer the vote, please.
Aye.
Commissioner Neely?
Aye.
Commissioner West?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith? Aye. Mayor Norris?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. And the last thing is just changes that Clark County is making to the dog services code, which is not a service provided by the city, but by Clark County. I think our city manager has basically been involved in the dog issues. Did you have any comments on this one?
We've had adequate time to have the city attorney review it, and it seems to be as was portrayed to me, that mostly housekeeping changes to the code. That the county we're required to adopt it so that they have jurisdiction. They had jurisdiction under our former action, but now that we've made changes to their code, we need to adopt the new version so that they can continue to serve our area.
There's really nothing that changes the service to citizens or the way that we.
No, but I do know that they've, they're looking at their bottom line and they're struggling to provide the service. But I think you've all received my email on the encouragement I want with them in that area.
Right. Okay, thank you. I have a motion for adoption of this resolution 1025. And second? Moved by Commissioner Neely, seconded by Commissioner Nocita to amend resolution 1-33, consenting to changes to the Clackamas County Dog Services Code related service delivery. Any comment? Nancy, the vote please.
Commissioner Nocita?
Aye.
Commissioner Neely?
Aye.
Commissioner West? Aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Norris?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. That concludes our business agenda, so we move into communications.
Before we go into communications, I do have a request for Commissioner.
Okay.
This is really in reference to the October 20th letter. It's next to the last paragraph where it's recognized that the planning staff will informally agree to send all future land use notices to the Beaver Creek. On the Beaver Concept Plan area, they suggested code, but I would suggest that we actually make a resolution to that fact. So it's not such an informal thing. Beaver Creek Hamlet is that area, that development area is really important, and we need to plan for the future in terms of our relations with the Beaver Creek Hamlet. We've had our urban reserve extend further out that direction, and I think we really need to open up communications more formally. I'm not suggesting a code, I am suggesting a resolution to deal with this issue, to make sure anything that deals with that particular area covered by the concept plan.
I believe that Mr. Conkle mentioned that he's put it in a policy
Right.
that all CPOs that are affected then receive notice. So I don't know if we need to make it stronger.
Well, we haven't voted on policy, but that's the point. I mean, I think we need to take action to that effect.
Well, if they do to make it stronger, that's.
You don't have to take action to direct us to do it because we've already done it, and it's really a matter of how you implement your existing land use policy. So it's I'm not even sure you would call it policy that the council would ordinarily describe. I mean, you can get drilled down pretty low on how much direction you want to give us and be very, very specific about dates, times, things like that. It really depends on whether you're comfortable.
You got a written policy at this point? I mean, that's a stated policy, I don't know what's written.
It's a department policy right now.
Yeah.
The next step up would be an administrative policy from the city manager's office, and the step up from that would be a resolution from that.
It's a resolution because this is
Just like, may I ask that we see what Tony has written from the department, because it's more comprehensive than Beaver Creek, as you mentioned.
Right. I sent out an email to all my staff members, and we've updated all of our noticing. We have a transmittal sheet that shows who we send notice to, and those have been updated to show all three CPOs and all their mailing and contact information.
Okay, so could I suggest you send that out and that we consider this under future agenda items then for next time to see if that satisfies the need we might have.
Transmit to the commission a copy of the policy that has been implemented. If you're satisfied that that does it.
Right.
Then,
Okay. Yeah, I was pleased to see that you had right done. Okay, now under communications, our traveling city manager just City Managers Association.
had a good conference, International City Manager Association conference in San Jose. Only downside was getting snagged up in the presidential visit on the way back. I don't know if I was on the front of the motorcade or the back, but somehow I was in it. The conference is really a little bit of lower attendance this year than we've seen in prior years, in part because it's on the West Coast and cities on the East Coast had a lot more travel expenses and obviously tighter budgets. So overall, I thought it was a good conference. I took several classes on the economy, emerging technologies, even one of the classes was suggesting how cities are eventually going to be using online gaming, or at least they're suggesting that cities might use online gaming as a way to engage citizens in visioning and problem solving. Keep in mind the conference was held about 2 blocks from the Google headquarters, the Googleplex there in Silicon Valley, so some of the speakers were close and they lean toward technology solutions for everything you could even imagine. So that was the eye-opener for me, and a lot of people enjoyed that. I also got quite a bit of work done on planning for our commission meetings and retreat coming up in January. Met with some people there to help me plan for that, and I also got some new ideas that I think might help our code enforcement program in the future through potential use of volunteers. Some cities are using volunteers more and more for those. One of the cities in particular that has struggled is Sparks, Nevada, where they've reduced their workforce by over 200 employees. They originally, I think, had 750, and they're down to 550, and of course, people still want the same service. But a lot of the homes are vacant, so they're not. The service demand has gone down somewhat, but not to the extent that the staff. I also wanted to mention that the training that I received there, I think, is directly pertinent to Goal 2, maintaining an environment for economic success, and Goal 5, to facilitate citizen participation. Let's see. Also, Public Works, DEQ has issued a draft of a new permit for public comment, and our annual report has been submitted to DEQ. I'm going to ask Nancy to comment briefly on that. Before I do, I got a little humor out of this picture. These are some of our folks, and Nancy can tell you more about this, but this is a picture of 2 of our employees that recently became Rhodes Scholars. And Rhodes is ROADS Scholars. They had certification from ODOT's E2 Center. These, of course, address Goal 4, livability, and Goal 3, addressing critical facility needs. Nancy, could you tell us a little bit more about the Rhodes Scholar program?
Yes, I would like to congratulate Dan Ayers, who I know has done quite a bit of work with the NC Fair, and also Jan Holmgren. They're both utility workers, utility maintenance specialists in our street division, and they have both achieved their Rhodes Scholar. They've gone through a tremendous amount of training through the ODOT's training program for transportation professionals. And such training includes environmental training, obviously paving training, maintenance mathematics. You can go out and measure a roadway and figure out how many cubic yards or tonnage of asphalt or gravel you may need, amongst other things. Pavement maintenance management, effective communication skills, which I think is important for because just the last few weeks our road crew's been out with our story steel contractor, and there's a lot of direct contact with the public and helping them maneuver as we have to close their street temporarily. There's also work zone traffic control training, street maintenance and collection, and emergency services training. And this takes, well, there's a list of classes that is not a simple thing. You don't achieve this in a week. It takes years to get this. And we definitely sponsor these kinds of events for our employees because we can see the benefits it brings to them when they're out in the field and working for the City of Oregon City. So I really want to recognize their hard work in achieving this. And at our all-staff meeting the other morning, we presented them with their certifications, and then we took a picture so that their picture will actually go into the newsletter that comes out for the ODOT T2 program, and then they get the picture in the newsletter, which is really great because there are not that many road professionals out there that have achieved this so far, and I'm really proud of them.
I was actually had an opportunity at ICMA's conference to boast a little bit about the training and the education level of our Public Works Department, because if you look at the number of accomplishments and certifications at the highest levels from PE on down, for the size of the department is really pretty remarkable. A lot of cities our size have one PE anywhere on the property. So we're very fortunate with that, and I appreciate that, Nancy. Next, I also want to mention, I think last time I reported to you that the storytelling at the library is going to occur Saturday night. So that's directly, I think, applicable to enhancing the livability of our community, Goal 4. Also in HR, the city opened its first online recruitment on Monday for a bilingual court service collection clerk. The city has accepted applications by email before. However, we have not until recently had the capability to go completely paperless with an online recruitment and application tracking system. And we're using a software provider called governmentjobs.com to accomplish that. And that is tied to Goal 1, building a sustainable future, and Goal 5, increasing communication with citizens. So unless one of the department directors, I got here a little late today, so unless somebody else has anything.
I just wanted to add about the stormwater.
Okay.
We have submitted our annual reports to EQ for our stormwater permit, our municipal separate storm sewer system discharge permit, and it's online if anybody wants to take a look at it. The other thing that Mr. Fraser mentioned is that EQ has issued the draft permits. We presented permit language and new permit language to the commission. Was that in May, I think? We had a couple of presentations with Crystal Reininger of Brown and Caldwell to advise the commission of what they might expect to see in the new permits. Drafts have been issued, and some of the requests we had, DEQ made some changes. There are some additional requirements in the permit that was actually issued, so we're going to be looking at this hard. Public comment period is until I think about November 22nd, and we're going to be meeting with the city attorney's office and Brown and Caldwell and John Lewis and myself to see if there's some areas where we're feeling like we may not be able to get to where they want us to be, or we still have concerns. And I don't know if the commission would be at all interested in an update on what has been put into the draft permit or not. We'd be happy to come back and do a quick presentation on that, or just leave it to us, whatever you prefer. And because of the additional requirements, I do think that this has strong impact on the budget and how we can achieve some of these requirements. And most of them are very good requirements for a city our size. They're tricky with the resources we have. So that's something that we'll have more conversations about later, but we'd be happy to come and give an update. And I think if the public comment period is through November 22nd, we probably want to come at the November 3rd meeting to you.
I think that's good, especially because it has budget implications. It's good to keep it up on our radar.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now I would like to take the opportunity to thank Public Works particularly for the trolley tour last Friday. It was very informative, well attended, very well organized, and I learned a couple of things I didn't know before. So I think the attendees found it to be very beneficial. So thank you, Public Works, for your hard work in putting that together. You report, Mr. Fraser? Okay. The commissioners who have reports this evening. Well, then I'll go ahead and
report if I might make a request.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Let's go ahead.
It's just I think all of us were. Well, I never knew about until about a week or so this biofuel facility is going in apparently near Ridge Road, or that's being discussed. I don't know if it's not in this, as they're planning, the Clackamas County Planning Commission in terms of this fairly large facility on Ridge Road and Redland. And my question is, will this have any potential impact on Redland Road and Oregon City? And that's being directed to staff, actually, so I don't know if you're paying attention there.
You want to have a report for that at the next meeting, maybe?
I don't know if they'll know anything. I presume we didn't notice this sometime. This is,
you know.
Okay, but apparently it's only through the Planning Commission. It seems to be a very large facility going on Redmond Road for biofuel. They'll have, several trips a day of material going into that facility. And I just picked this up on the news this last week. And I heard people from Redmond Road themselves talking about it. So I think we need to be informed on those procedures.
Good idea.
Let's look into that.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you.
That'd be good. Okay, Mr. Smith?
I just wanted to make a couple of event announcements, but I enjoyed the trolley tour. There was one thing though. The mayor kept asking me trivia questions and wouldn't call on me. I don't know if she's. I think she didn't see me. I don't know.
No, I said all the commissioners.
I think she didn't have any prizes. All right, so the library, the storytelling at the library on the 23rd is part of Spirits of Oregon City, and lots of events going on. And thanks to Karen, Spirits of Oregon City has a Facebook page, so you can look on there for information about that. I think the bus tour is sold out, which it always says. And then the other thing, trick or treat on Main Street. And I was trying to read the sign 4:30 to 8:30, I think.
And not on Halloween, it's on Friday.
Or it looks like it says 8:30 out there. Can someone see that? 6:30. Okay, I knew it wasn't at 7:30, so it's 6:30. 4:30 to 6:30. On the 29th, Friday, downtown, which is one of my favorite events to go with my nephews and to see. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun, so don't forget to do that, and happy Halloween.
Thank you. Well, we've had a great deal of activity at Metro. I mentioned to you last time at our Impact Meeting, Metro Policy Advisory Committee, that we were addressing several big issues which will direct the future of the region. And we did choose to permit Happy Valley Town Center to relocate Cornelius to become a town center and Tanasbourne Town Center to become a regional center. But we asked that we discuss several questions in the future, and that, how many regional centers should the region have? The 7 enough? I guess that would be 8. Are we going to go to 15? What does that do? And we acknowledge the fact that there is only a finite pot of money, particularly for transportation. With more regional centers, it gets sliced and diced in smaller amounts. So that's a serious question to have. And where should they be located? Should the majority of them be in Washington County, which is sort of where they're kind of going right now? And how does the siting of one regional center affect the others? So there's some serious discussions that will be happening in the future. And what's the criteria for citing regional centers? Just because you want to be? And so we had some very heated discussion over that. The second heated discussion was over how much large lot industrial land does the region need. The COO, Michael Jordan, recommended 310 acres. The range that was in the report was 200 acres to 1,500 acres. And if you recall, I mentioned that cities could put in requests for additional lands. So there were requests, one from the city of Hillsborough, from Cornelius, from Forest Grove, and Tualatin that totaled 1,126 acres of additional land. So the CEO 310 and 1126. There was heated argument that particularly around Hillsborough, that land is needed for foreign high-tech industry. We know about Intel's big announcement, and there will be more Intels in Hillsborough, and they want to be ready for it. So, what constitutes how much land we need, and the Portland particularly has argued that we need to get the brownfields we already have and do infill rather than spreading to the edge. So, yeah, we're the vote taken. The 1126 did not go. The next motion was taking the COO's report and it passed 8-7. It may be reconsidered. So that's where we are on that one. And then the next one, if lands are designated as regionally significant industrial areas, right now the Metro Code, I believe, says that the only use that can be prevented there is schools. And the discussion, I don't think we adopted this. I think we just talked about it. We keep running out of time because our discussions have been so meaty. But that land should remain as significant for industrial and not degraded and not go to other uses. So in addition to schools, the proposal is no parks and no places of assembly. I'm not sure that's how the wording will be, but what I guess has happened in certain areas is that industrial land is nice and flat and maybe be adjacent to the school, so it's school bus parking. So a lot of those regionally significant industrial lands have turned into parking areas, I guess. So another big topic within the region. And then the one that we didn't get to at all, and it's very much related to the call up, probably the reconsideration of that industrial land from the 310 to whatever, is do we need a policy that parcels that are considered large lot industrials are 50 acres and higher? And so if a 50-acre parcel is used, or a piece of it is used, should there be a system of replenishment? And how should that occur, and where should that occur? And that's, again, a very heated topic on how much we should set aside in the region. And there's multiple issues with ownership and parcelization that go into that. So that's what we're considering at Metro, and I'm not sure how quickly we're going to get through all of those. Now, to another Metro committee is JCAC, Joint Policy Advisory Committee on Transportation. There's two, I think, interesting things I learned there. One is that Clackamas County has a new lobbyist, Troy Rayburn, who's going to be doing transportation and other things. And then we can discuss the legislative agenda. It appears not to be the year, perhaps, knowing what the state's fiscal policies will be, where agencies like Metro will go down with their hand out. But the two things that are being considered are these. One is to loosen preemptions that the legislature has for jurisdictions to enact particularly transportation and jobs-related areas. And then secondly, give us the tools to take care of our own problems. So those are kind of going to be the two focuses for the legislative agenda, which isn't really written, but that's a very different legislative agenda. Loosening and tools oriented rather than give us more money. Then the third thing, I thought this was interesting too. House Bill 2001, that is called the Oregon Jobs and Transportation Act, has many different facets, not just our 22 million for drug handle. It also directed Metro to develop, and this does affect us too because we're part of the region. Metro is supposed to develop 2 or more alternative land use and transportation scenarios by January 2012 to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from light-duty vehicles. And we will, as part of the region, we have to be participatory in that. I don't know any of that. I don't know the answers to any of that. I assume that all gets to be. Do you know the answer to that? It has to be defined. So I think all that should be defined, and then we've been discussing the scenario planning and how we get a handle on that and who's involved, and so you'll be hearing a lot more about that. But just know that that's a legislative mandate at this point that the region has to make a report. So I believe those are the. Are there other reports to be made? Commissioner Sita?
I don't have a report, but I wanted to ask staff and the city attorney about something I've been curious about since reading the updates from the city recorder on
volunteer appointments for various committees, etc., or the Urban Renewal Commission and the Planning Commission. You have a transition year like this, when you have a majority of the commission up, where you have a term-limited mayor. For terms that begin on January 1st, does the commission and mayor make those appointments now, or does the new commission and mayor make them after the first of the year?
Charter only gives it to the mayor.
Well, no, Urban Renewal Commission is by the city.
That's by a separate state statute, but under the charter, it's the mayor. By the mayor, if there is no vacancy in the commission and in the position, then there's nothing to appoint. If there are vacancies before January 1, I don't want to make a horseback opinion. My gut says that if there's somebody there now, and there's a vacancy as of January, and it's the new mayor. I will look at that, and I will get you back something.
We have vacancies currently. In practice, the outgoing mayor, prior to me, we made the planning commission appointments together, and I plan on extending that courtesy to the candidate that's successful.
Just for background, not you, but a mayor previously attempted to appoint a planning commissioner on the day that he, in that case, left office, and see what.
There's actually a time when there is no mayor with authority. My term essentially expires at midnight on January 31st, and then the new mayor does not have authority. Excuse me, December. What is it? December 31st, and then the new mayor does not actually have authority until sworn on this year, the January 3rd or 4th or something. So there's actually that little lifetime in there. So okay, get back on that. Yeah, we have a lot of vacancies we've advertised for those positions. Some of them are filled by the organization themselves.
And I've received 12 applications, so they're starting to come in.
Okay. Anything else coming for us? So then we are adjourned.